Hey, welcome back into Packers Playbook. I'm Dusty Evely. With me, as always, John Kuhn. John, coming off an exciting win over the Texans, over the 5-1 Texans. Defense showed some life. Offense did some really nice things. We're focusing on the offensive side today. First of all, how are you?
Man, I'm fantastic. I really am, and we're in a good spot of the season right now, Dusty. We just played one of the best teams in the AFC, got a victory at home. Now we take a trip down to Jacksonville. They're coming off of spending 2 weeks over in London. You know, a trap game for us. People are saying it might be a trap game for them. They're going to get back and be all kinds of out of sorts. And then we get back home before we get another big, opponent in the Lions at home before we roll into the bye. So great start here for the Packers at 5-2. Couple more things to take care of before the bye, but looking like we're in a really good spot.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're going to get to it. So today we are kind of where this took us. We're going to do a little Josh Jacobs appreciation, point out a couple things from him. So we've got 4 plays today. My main note on this one is, man, this is cool. So this is a run play, 11 personnel, 2nd and 8, early in the 3rd. Get a little motion. They go motion to empty, bring Josh Jacobs into the backfield, and then run counter off of that. Really, really cool look. John, what do you got on this one, man?
You know, Dusty, it was one of those days, if you're a Josh Jacobs fantasy holder or a fan, you're like, man, what's going on? I think it was only 11 carries, but very efficient carries, 70 some odd yards, averaging at about a 7-yard clip. And really, it started off slow, but then you started getting some chunk plays. And this reminded me so much of what we saw against Indianapolis, so much of what we saw against Tennessee. You get a puller here, you get a puller there, and you get some bells and whistles behind the line of scrimmage that can get the defense out of their gaps. And you see exactly that right here. Once again, out of this Packers team, you got the pull right there out of the, who is that, Ryan, or is that Morgan? I can't
I
tell.
think that's Ryan. That's Ryan, yeah.
It's Ryan, and then you got, I believe that's Tucker Kraft coming around there as well. And the best part about these is these kick-out blocks, they don't have to be perfect. You need to get a guy off balance. You need to get his feet unstill. You see Sean Ryan there does a pretty good job. Tucker Kraft almost olays, but he makes the defender go so far outside that Josh Jacobs now has a clear lane. And here's the best part. Every time you have pullers, you're going to have a point of attack block. And we'll see it from the other angle. The point of attack block comes in the form of Rasheed Walker right here. You see Rasheed Walker and Elton Jenkins work this combo block up to the next level, and that allows with Tucker Kraft's seal and their seal a big old lane down the middle of this football field. And don't forget Christian Watson, probably one of the best blocking wide receivers in the NFL.
Yeah, absolutely. This is one of those things. Like you said, it reminded me of the Indianapolis game. This was the I think we talked about this at the time. The stuff they were doing with Malik Willis, kind of unlocking this running game. How much of that do we see with Jordan Love? I think they've been slow to bring a lot of that stuff in, but this certainly looks a whole lot like that. Like you said, you've got the kick here, you've got Kraft kind of missing, but like you said, gets enough upfield. Then the combo, and then right there, this is one of those like the setup is beautiful, the execution absolutely perfect. This goes for 10 yards early in 3rd quarter. Just a really nice look from there. Anything else on that one, John?
What I love about that and why it reminded me so much of Indianapolis and Tennessee is because you can see everybody in the blocking unit, they know it's on them. It's on them, and Josh Jacobs will make it right. Tucker Kraft misses. He doesn't get a whole lot, but he does it at full speed. And when you do it at full stinking speed, you can get that defender out of his spot, out of his field zone, and they do just that. Josh Jacobs does a good job making a really nice run there out of the Packers.
Yeah, absolutely. And part of that is, I mean, like you said, I mean, Kraft is he's becoming known as a very good blocker. Part of that looks like is he's seeing Kraft, he's trying to slip under, which gets him out of position a little bit right there.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a tremendous play. This is the very next play. This goes for 27 here. So this, I mean, looks more or less kind of like you got a little balloon there, kind of like a standard wide zone. You got Walker on the edge there, kind of washing a guy down who's trying to clip the edge, and then Jacobs just making, I mean, kind of a very standard looking run here. Gets a little cutback off the wide zone, right up the middle, burst for 27. John, what do you got on this one?
Well, I love this. Here goes your bells and whistles behind the line of scrimmage, and it's in the form of Jaden Reed this time. Does a little motion out, does a little orbit motion behind before he falls in to a 3-man screen, which is the bailout that Jordan will use if he feels like there's TMM, too many mother you-know-whats, down to the play side. He doesn't feel like that's the case. He's got a good count for an offensive line. All the combo blocks will work their way up, and Josh Jacobs should have a lane if this thing plays out right. But you can see that bailout there to Jaden Reed if he needs to go that direction with the 2 blockers in front of him. It was a 1-man screen on the last play. This is the same thing, just using a little misdirection on the second level. You can see how Jaden Reed going out to the side, how it affects that backside inside linebacker. Circle him right there. You can see how it gets his attention enough to keep him out of this play side. And when you do that, the most important blocks, because now you got to count on the inside. Josh Jacobs got to beat the end man on the line of scrimmage. Everybody else has got good angles for their blocks, and you can see right there between the 3 interior offensive linemen, they're on 3 on the inside, and they stand no chance to Houston Texans.
Yeah, we'll get a good look at this from the backside. I will say on this one, too, this is when we've seen them run a lot. Like you said, a little RPO, you've got that screen. There have been times in the past I've seen them throw this, but defense have gotten smarter. And like you said, that backside guy will just shoot that gap. He doesn't typically count on the numbers over there, but that is something that looked like Love was looking out for. Like, even though he's not fully bumping over, you've got a clear shot at that gap, which is probably why he moved on there. So we'll see the backside from the run stuff here. Like you said, we got the bells and whistles. We got him bumping over, a little washout there. Bang, bang, bang. End man's unblocked. And then you just get that really nice cutback lane there, right?
Oh, yeah. And when you give a back like Josh Jacobs that run lane, and really what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to push that thing all the way to the numbers and cut back to the hash. That's exactly what they did on this zone play. So it worked out exactly the way you like it. And when RPOs are working great, when your RPO game is on point, you can take both, because you know by RPOs when it's working, the defense doesn't know which way to go. You saw that defender that we were putting in a bind. If he buzzed out there, we made the right choice. If he hung in there, we throw it out there. But he's in such a bind, he doesn't make either choice, and either choice would have been correct. That's when you know your RPO game is at its top of its game.
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't count the RPOs this game. I've not quite gotten there yet, but I know they didn't throw a single one. Pretty much any RPO tag this game, they ran off of. So they had that working. I think Texans were kind of looking for that. Packers just ran it right at him every single time. So let's see, what do we got here? We got a question on this one, John. This is Josh Jacobs' first receiving touchdown, which is just an insane thing to say. 2nd and 8, 11 personnel at the 8-yard line. Got a little 2-man stick to the left. You're running back over. You got the little setup screen, kind of a 1-man screen with Josh Jacobs, with Ryan just kind of hanging out, looking to block, and Jacobs angling in, getting touchdown. John, what do you have on this one?
Well, Matt LaFleur and the offensive staff has said they've had conversations inside the building about joking with Josh Jacobs about how he has 211 receptions without a touchdown catch, and that it's this big thing, this big to-do to get him his first touchdown catch. Well, most running backs, they catch touchdowns out of screens, and the Packers tried to screen the play before this. It did not work. It almost was there, but they had a lineman playing over the top that fell right into it. Well, you know what? What's the best way to run a screen? Right after a screen. Generally, they work really, really well, and Matt LaFleur calls it. What I love about this screen is the speed of it. It doesn't take very long to get into the actual screen pass itself, and because of that, you got to diagnose it much faster if you're the Houston Texans. You know, they play a lot of zone, which means screens work really well for zones, and you don't have a man kind of chasing Josh Jacobs out there. You know that. You know that in the red zone, you should be able to get a screen off without a man coming. And if you speed it up a little faster, because everything happens faster in the red zone, good things will happen. You can see that this thing plays. Now, if this defensive end curls inside of Zach Tom there on the outside, I can wait until you go to the tight copy. There's a little navigating here that both Jordan Love and Josh Jacobs have to do, but they make it work here in this situation. As you see Josh Jacobs come out here to hit his landmark, the defensive end carries high. Jordan Love's got to step up just a little bit and put that in between, that little lane. That's a huge lane for that defensive end there. He could have very easily had taken the inside of Zach Tom there and tried to create some pressure. And if you do that, then you quickly, as Jordan Love, got to carry around the backside. That's really the only danger of this play. And it's a really nice play that I see the Packers using more and more as the season goes on.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I got a question for you on this, actually, John. So it looks like, they've got this little 2-man route over here, right? And the fact that Ryan is the 1 man leaking out his blocker, and he's not like on a typical screen. You got, multiple guys leaking downfield. If that ball's not out on time, you get the ineligible man downfield stuff because you got 3 guys 5 yards down the field. You're setting that stuff up with the one man, and he's just kind of lingering here. This is a real option, right? Like if he likes this, he can take this quick game with the 3-step drop with the screen on the backside. Is that how this looks to you?
Yeah, go back at the start of this play. Go back to the very start of this play. What's impressive about this is this motion is based here. This shift, this motion for Josh Jacobs. Jordan Love's gathering some information from this. What information is he gathering? He's probably gathering if it's man, if it's zone. If it's man, he's going to throw this ball to the side because I just told you, if it's man, they're probably going to get up on Josh Jacobs, and that's probably going to be his man. There's a tell somewhere in this, and I didn't do advanced scout on the Texans, so I'm not quite sure what the tell is that Jordan Love knows that this is going to be a zone right from the bat, probably from the positioning of the safeties. It looks like a red Tampa that they're in. So that's probably the tell that he got there. But with that being said, he knows that it's zone coverage. He knows that he's going to have a good throw over here to Josh Jacobs. That's why he takes this. This would be the throw that you would put if you would have man or some kind of funny look to the right. And why is it only one guy going out in the screen to protect? Well, because this screen's into the boundary, Dusty. There's not a whole lot of room out there. You don't want to send a lot of guys out there. You don't want to hurry up this process. You let everybody block. You send this one man out because they're really in a screen into the boundary. There should really only be one flat defender.
Yeah. And a question on this, John, and this is kind of maybe a silly question. I'll run this off the top of my head. If I'm not mistaken, the course of your career, say regular season stuff, I think you had 19 rushing touchdowns, 9 receiving. Is there anything that I know that, like you said, kind of joking about Josh Jacobs doesn't have a receiving touchdown? Is there anything to the fact that he didn't have any receiving touchdowns? Is that something in his head at this point? Perhaps I need to get one of those. Is there any difference between those in your mind?
I think he's been such a good back out of the backfield at catching the football. It's a weird stat. It's a stat that I bounced it off a couple people in the league to ask them, is there a reason? Is it just one of those weird oddities? And they said, yeah, everything about conventional football wisdom would tell you that within 200 catches, you should have one for a touchdown, especially being as dynamic as Josh Jacobs has been in his career. You would have thought he would have gotten one catch, broke one tackle, made one touchdown. The fact that he hadn't done it had become almost a joke inside of Lambeau Field, to the point where Matt and company made it a point that they were gonna get this to go down at some point in time.
Yeah, you could see him over the past few weeks really trying to force the issue. You have at least one target for Jacobs every trip to the low red zone here. So I'm glad it finally paid off for him, for the Packers, for everyone involved. John, anything else on this one, or do you want to move to our last one here?
Now let's move to the last one. And what's interesting about this one, Dusty, and I wanted to throw this one on. The game was getting a little bit close here. It was getting a little rocky. Jaden Reed had just made a bad decision, fielded a punt inside his end zone, got tackled inside the 5, and now you need to run a football. The Packers came out in this game. I think they ran Josh Jacobs 11 times. I think 5 of those were from the dot, 6 of them for gun. What do I mean from the dot? I mean behind Jordan Love. And we can go straight behind him with this next one. And when you put the running back in the dot, there's a new mentality. There's a new feel. There's a new objective. And each one of the offensive linemen know you're going to hit this play harder. This is an attitude run at a pivotal point in this football game. Go ahead and press play, and I'll tell you when to stop it. Now, stop. Look at that wedge. You need to get yards on first down when you're backed up. You need to get some room for your punter. This ball started on the 3.5-yard line, and there was room for Josh Jacobs to get all the way to the 6. Coming out is just like going in. It's very tight. There's a lot of bodies. They moved the line of scrimmage 3 yards before the running back had to worry about a single person. I love the apex of this picture. I love the wedge of this picture. And for an offensive line that hasn't been moving people the same in the run game like they had when they had to do it with Malik Willis at quarterback, they showed for one play at least, when we have to do it, we still can do it. So I thought the Packers ran well in this game. And, when you start diving down into the numbers, Dusty, why did they only run 5 times from the dot if that's an attitude thing? Well, I would assume that's about 50-50. I would assume play action was about 50-50 from the dot as well. You don't just want your run and pass to be 50-50. You want your play action and your runs from the dot to be 50-50. That's the way that you keep defenses on their heels, and that's where I think the Packers are trying to go this football season.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you mentioned attitude run. I mean, this was 12 personnel, super heavy. Christian Watson is the lone wide receiver, and he's somewhere out there. I mean, you've got Dontavian Wicks on the insert. Like everyone's doing their job, everyone's shoving, tremendous run in a big spot to kind of get them out of there. And like you said, bring in Daniel Whalen. And we're not talking special teams here, but gracious, Daniel Whalen, what a game. Like just absolute bombs, dude.
Player of the game. I'd give Daniel Whelan, if there's only one game ball, he gets my one game ball because the defense did a great job in the second half, working against the run game. They made their adjustments at halftime. The offense did a good job in the second half, not turning the ball over and playing their complicit part like they did in the first half. But then Daniel Whelan continually flipping the field, and field position was a big reason why the Texans got up in this football game the way that they did. And Daniel Whelan flipping that script in the second half was a big reason why the Packers won this football game.
Yeah, I think he went succession 66, 61, 59, and then obviously had the big hold on the game-winning field goal at the end there as well on a snap that skipped into him. So, yeah, give him the game ball, give him all the game balls. John, you got anything else on this one? I mean, this was, as we said, this was a close game, closer than it should have been based on some mistakes from special teams and a couple turnovers there, especially in the first half. But what kind of a win like this against this team, what does that do for your team who, I mean, had been kind of struggling to find itself a little bit? I feel like they cemented themselves a little bit last week with the Packers. But what does a win like this do for your team going forward?
I think it builds all the confidence in the world that you can beat any team on any given day under any set of circumstances. And what I mean by that is this. There were a lot of questions going into the game. What could the defense do when they don't turn the ball over? Can they get stops? Can they get big 3-and-outs? Can they get good third down stops to force opponents to punt the football away if they're not getting those turnovers? And what happens if we lose a turnover battle for once during a ball game? Well, we found a way to win a game where we lost 3-0 in the turnover battle. That's less than 10% that happens in the NFL. And you found a way that our defense got stops without turning the football over. That to me said everything I need to know about where this football team is going. The one big question mark, kicker, we got that answered for 1 week. We'll see if we can make it 2 in a row. I really wanted to do the film on what the Packers did to keep CJ Stroud to his worst passing day as a professional, but I just thought Josh Jacobs means too much to this offense. And even when he doesn't have gaudy numbers, his efficiency is there, and we needed to highlight it.
Yeah, defensive film was fun this week. I was digging into that a little bit, but nothing wrong with digging into all the stuff Josh Jacobs did this week. So, John, as always, thanks for joining. This has been a blast. You got anything else? Are you ready to get out of here, man?
I'm ready to get down there to Jacksonville and get ourselves a win because I can't wait to get this on with Detroit in 2 weeks. This is going to be incredible. But we can't look past Jacksonville.
I agree 100%. All right, guys, thanks for watching. As always, see you next week. As always, go Pack, go.